Hello, NAF Nation! Woo! It is such an honor to be here. Thank you to Lisa, JD, Courtney, Dana. Can we please give it up for the entire team here making this amazing conference happen? It's just incredible. I am so thrilled to be here talking about being future ready. When you think of the future, what do you feel? Anyone feel nervous, confused, intimidated, maybe a little scared? Well, this gentleman's hand shot right up. He's terrified. It's going to be okay, sir. I promise. We'll get through this together. He's right, though. You know, we are. We're living in some scary times. You want to hear about a scary time? I was invited to a baby shower. So I thought back to my childhood and how excited I got to pick a book off my bookshelf for my mom and I to read at night. So I went out and got this bundle of the most classic children's books, brand new hardcovers, wrapped them up, put a nice little bow on top. I went over to the baby shower, went over to set them down on the gift table, and right next to mine, an iPad. An iPad. This baby's just born. Doesn't know how to do anything yet, an iPad. What's he gonna do with it? It's heavier than he is. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my iPad, iPhone, iMac, ibuprofen, I've got it all. Big fan. But this is a baby we're talking about. Do you think maybe it's possible we're bringing it just a little too soon? Maybe? Scary times. You know what I find fascinating and grounding? You want to know what calms me down? When I remind myself that we have far more control over the future than we often realize. Don't we? I mean, the future isn't written for us. We get to create it. I think it's our greatest responsibility, our greatest opportunity to be future ready. You look around today and everything is different. Things are changing at a dizzying speed and everything is instant. Instant messaging, instant dates, instant access to movies and TV shows. When I was little, all I remember were instant noodles. That was it. That was innovation. But not anymore. Innovation has taken on a whole new chapter. For example, who in this room is on Tinder, Bumble, Grindr, JDate, Christian Mingle? You don't have to wait till Friday night to meet someone at the bar. You just swipe. Anytime, day or night. You don't have to wait a week to watch the next episode. You can binge an entire season in one day. And we've all done it. Right? This instant culture may have started with my generation, the younger millennials, Gen Yers, but it has seeped out into every other generation now too. Nobody's safe. It's like a disease. Don't get me wrong, I do not think technology is a disease. I actually think it's awesome. The access we have to information and opportunity today is unprecedented. It feels like anything is possible, doesn't it? And when I say anything, I mean anything. Never mind self-driving cars. Just before I came out here, I got a text from my 85-year-old grandmother that included emojis and animated confetti. Right? I know. And while that's awesome, I realized it didn't feel the same as receiving a handwritten card from her. And it definitely didn't feel the same as sitting across the table from each other. An emoji can't hug us. An emoji can't shake our hand or look into our eyes. And it can't replace those feelings. Now, I love technology. I mean, of course, look at me. I was born in the early 90s. I've been surrounded by tech for half my life, but we are all surrounded by the digital era now. All of us. We're all waiting for that next phone to be announced, for that next great app to be released. And I think technology is great. Digital is great. We should celebrate it, use it as the tool that it is. But without the foundation of our relationships with each other offline, we lose the meaning. Without the foundation of our relationships with each other offline, we lose the meaning. I remember as a little kid playing on the porch with my mom and reading books. It was always books and trains. I loved books and trains. Or a book about trains, even better. Or reading a book about trains while on a train, the best. My childhood was naturally rich with connection. My earliest memories were on that porch playing and reading with my mom. There was no computer around. Nobody was holding a phone in their hand. That's why I thought to bring books to the baby shower and not an iPad. We all want to feel connected. As human beings, we are hardwired for connection. We want to feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves. People don't just want to be told great stories. We want to feel part of a great story, don't we? That starts with community. Who here in this room believes they are a community builder? Awesome, 3 of you. Well, in less than an hour, my goal is to have every single person in this convention center raise their hand. Regardless of your role or title, I want to help you reimagine yourself as a chief community builder, because that is what will truly future-proof our organization. I'm a little obsessed with community. Truly, I'm very obsessed with community. As the CEO of Count Me In, I've watched one of the largest millennial movements form before my eyes over the past 10 years. 10 million people now spread across 104 countries. I've had the privilege to work with some of the world's most dynamic brands, Fortune 100 companies, and I've actually researched community leadership on the ground in 20 countries. And across it all, what I have found is that when organizations focus on community building, results are measurable. And it's always easy to pick out the ones that don't. So, NAF Nation, let me ask you, are you ready to take your community, your work, your life to the next level? Are you ready? Then let's do this. Let's do this. What I want to do today is start off with something I never talk about. What I want to talk about is community. It's what I speak about with audiences around the world. But I want to start by taking you all the way back to the beginning. Something I rarely do, and I want to do it because the beginning for me was high school. And given your work with students across the country, I could not think of a better place to start than my first day of freshman year. So, first day of freshman year, I wake up in the morning, look at myself in the mirror, and give myself the greatest pep talk I can muster because I'm terrified to start high school. Terrified, mortified. And it wasn't always this way. I used to look forward to it. But that was back in 8th grade when I thought I was going to be starting at this new school with a group of my friends. The thing is, the summer before I started high school, I moved to a brand new community, which meant this new big chapter was also a chapter I was about to start all on my own. So in giving myself this pep talk, I remember so clearly walking towards the doors of my new school, just telling myself it's going to be great, you're going to make new friends, Shane, you're going to have tons of fun, it's going to be amazing, awesome, just like High School Musical. Take a deep breath, and as I take my first step through the doors of my new school, all I'm thinking is channel Zac Efron, feel Zac Efron, be Zac Efron. And I step into my first day of freshman year, also known as one of the worst days of my entire life. Definitely nothing like High School Musical. And walking into the school wasn't the hardest part. It wasn't even my first class. It was lunch. And not the Hollywood, like, stereotypical version of lunch, you know, where you stand there with a tray of questionable food, not knowing what table to sit at in the cafeteria. That wasn't my experience at all. It was before that. The moment the lunch bell rang, lunch bell rings, I step out of class, and the hallway is instantly filled with all these circles, all these groups. People who have probably known each other for months, years. I'm surrounded by 1,300 students at what feels like the biggest high school in the country, and I feel completely alone. So what do? Being the tough, confident kid that I am, well, I puff out my chest, I walk down the hallway, I find an empty corner, pull out my phone, and I call my mom. Mommy, please, can I come home? Please, please, please. I'll do anything. I'll do the dishes, I'll do the laundry, I'll paint your toenails. Please, just let me come home. And Mom basically says, it's just a bad first day, a bad first impression, it's going to get better. And I'm like, well, thanks, Mom, it can't possibly get any worse. Except it does. Nothing tragic happens, but every day just feels longer, every class feels harder. I keep walking through the hallways wishing I didn't feel so alone and invisible. And I just feel lost. For the first time ever, I don't know anyone. None of the teachers know me. I have no friends. And I had these huge expectations of what high school was supposed to be like. And now that I'm here, it's actually the loneliest place I could imagine. I have no friends. I never even had to think about that before. When you meet kids in kindergarten or nursery school, it just happens. But when you don't know anyone, around 1,000 teenagers, it doesn't really work that way. So I don't know what to do. I'm just tapping into my primal teenager instincts. I start tapping in to social media, and it's awesome. Within 3 days, I have 137 people on my friend list. It's the best. I'm liking some pictures. People are commenting on some of mine. It's the weirdest thing because I seem to suddenly have all these friends online, but I also realize I still have no one to have lunch with. It's the strangest thing. And I realized that social media was kind of playing tricks on my brain. It was skimming the surface of these relationships, but there was no depth or dimension. The only thing I was actually connecting with was a screen. It's like social media falsifies connection. I logged on to make friends, to connect, and it just made me feel even more lonely. Loneliness cuts us off from connection. Without connection, we have no meaning. So now I'm waking up in the morning feeling like I've swallowed this 1,000-pound weight. It's just sitting there in my gut. My whole body feels so heavy, and all I want to do is crawl under the covers and never get up. And for weeks, I feel trapped in this black hole of emptiness. I'm walking alone outside over my lunch break because I have nothing better to do. I'll have someone to talk to in class one moment, but then no one to hang with after school. Groups of students are laughing and talking, hanging out all around me at their lockers, and I just want to climb inside of mine. Life sucks. Even though on the outside everything looks okay, on the inside, I'm scared. I feel hopeless and completely alone. And I didn't even do anything. It's the stupid school's fault. I must have landed in the worst high school in the country, in the world. I bet if I was at a different school, life wouldn't suck so much. And just like that, it's like the heavens parted. I had my answer, a transfer to a new school. Of course, another school where I will fit in and have friends and be happy. It has to be the school's fault. So with that new idea came a bit of a jog to my counselor's office. I walk in, I slam down my bag, I look at him, I say, Mr. Conte, I hate it here. This is the wrong school for me. Please help me transfer. Anywhere else would be better than here. And I'm hoping my school counselor, Mr. Conte, will just say, no problem, Shane. Open his desk drawer, take out the big book of schools, and point to the one he's going to send me to. But no book is pulled out. Instead, Mr. Conte looks at me, just looks at me, starts smiling and nodding a lot. Okay, all right, Shane, here's what we're gonna do. I don't really know you, son, so why don't you begin by telling me about yourself? What do you like to do? What are some of your hobbies? And freshman Shane was like, what is this? This is a waste of time. This is stupid and pointless. I may as well play Angry Birds. I'm literally ready to stand up and storm out of the office when a little voice pokes through the noise in my head and says, hold up. He's the only thing standing between you and a transfer. Maybe he's asking you this question so he can learn more about you, so he can find the perfect school for you, your perfect fit. So with this glimmer of hope, I start listing off every hobby, every interest I can think of. He's taking all these notes, listing off every interest I can think of: photography, music, video games, and he keeps scribbling on his paper. And when I'm done, he hands me this piece of paper he's been writing on and starts pointing out all these names. Except they're not names of schools, they're names of students. Okay, all right, Shane, here's what we're gonna do. This here is the producer of the school radio team. She's the head of this club, he's the president of this, she's the president of that. Go talk to these people. Go sign up for at least 5 different clubs or councils or teams, and then come back and see me in a week. So at this point, I'm so desperate, I'm willing to do anything to get that transfer. It's all I'm thinking about. If all Mr. Conte wants me to do is sign up for some lousy clubs, I'm going to do it right away. The second I leave his office, I go, I sign up, I show up at the first club meeting that same day after school, check out another club meeting the next day. the radio committee the next morning. And I can't tell you exactly when it happened. All I know is that suddenly I was walking down the hallway one day, and I looked over, and someone, as they were closing their locker, looked over at me, smiled, and nodded. And I nodded back, and I realized that we were in a charity club together. And in a class later that day, someone came over to me to ask all these questions about radio, and I realized we were on the radio team together. And day after day, I realized that I was smiling a lot more. I was talking to people in the halls because I was making friends. And the more I connected to my community, the more I really felt like I was part of one. And within days, everything started to shift. Within weeks, everything felt different. Everything changed. But at the same time, nothing was different, right? The school was the same building. The students were the same students. Teachers were the same teachers. The only thing that changed was that I put myself on the inside. And I realized that the only reason I felt like an outsider before is because I was acting like one. The only thing that changed was that I put myself on the inside, I plugged into my community, and that shifted everything. The more I got involved, the better I felt. The more I got connected to my community, the more I felt connected to purpose and meaning, the more driven I was to show up every single day and be the best version of myself. The better I felt, the more fun I was having. And the more I got involved, the more I connected to my community, the more I realized how many students in my school were not connected at all. There were so many students just going through the motions, day in and day out, going to classes, going home, doing homework, eating dinner, and starting it all again the next day. And in between it all, a whole lot of time on their phones. And I just didn't get it. They were missing out on all this opportunity that was right in front of them. They didn't even realize what they were missing out on. So I had this idea to plan this school assembly, this event, to motivate other students in my school to get involved, and then have this opportunity fair, like this after party right after the event, to actually connect students with clubs, councils, internship opportunities, volunteer projects that were the right fit for them, kind of like Mr. Conte helped me do. I went to Mr. Conte, pitched the event, and that meeting in his office changed my whole perspective on leadership. Here was this school counselor who just a couple weeks earlier saw this struggling kid trying to find his place, trying to transfer to another school, and now I'm coming in pitching this event, and all I got was unconditional support from him. He was the most compassionate, caring adult in that moment who trusted me, trusted my vision, and just wanted to support me and fuel this vision that I had. So I started planning it with a group of my friends. Our goal is for 50 students to attend this assembly. And word spread, students started talking, teachers started tweeting about it. And suddenly we had 20 kids signed up, and then 40, and then 60. And suddenly the classroom that I was going to use in our school just was not going to cut it. So I reached out to the local community theater, convinced them to lend us the space, and I'm glad I did, because we filled it. 386 students from 7 schools showed up. And that was the pilot project that would become Count Me In. And that was the moment that I realized I wasn't the only one that felt alone. I wasn't the only one that felt disconnected. I wasn't the only one who felt like there was more. So I went all in on this vision, on this idea. The next year, we planned an even bigger event for over 1,000 students. And the programs have evolved every year since. Now, 10 years later, Count Me In is one of the largest millennial movements in the world. We've worked with more than 10 million people, and our programs, professional development, speaking tours in schools and companies and organizations have reached people in 104 countries. And it all started out of this idea I had in my head as a freshman. Out of this way I wanted to give back to my community and be a version of Mr. Conte for my peers. And it's been a remarkable journey over the past 10 years. I've not only had the chance to lead this movement, to build this organization and watch it reach and impact so many people, but I've also created this mini obsession with community and innovation and leadership. So I have now researched community on the ground in 20 countries. And each country gave me this new perspective and insight about community, something new that I could bring back to my organization and all the other organizations I work with. And so I'd love to take you to a couple countries right now here today. I want to start by taking you to Shanghai, China. In a remote a suburb of Shanghai, I was walking back from Shuning Market, and I hear what sounds like an outdoor concert up ahead. So I keep walking through this street, which is filled with small, hole-in-the-wall seafood shops, bright neon signs everywhere, you can picture it. And this noise, this music, keeps getting louder and louder. And finally, I turn a corner and see the source of music is this brick-sized speaker blasting Mandopop, which to me sounds like traditional Chinese music infused with EDM. Now, there are about 100 people gathered around this speaker at the entrance of a public park. 100 people, all different ages, genders, dancing. Picture this, okay? Men and women are waltzing, some form conga lines, a couple gentlemen are doing the tango. It's a scene. But apparently, not a unique one in China. What I came to learn was that in China, every single day, an estimated 100 million people gather in parks and squares across the country and dance together. They're referred to as guangchangwu, which translates to square dancers. And this has nothing to do with American Western square dancing. It literally refers to people dancing in public squares. One of the dedicated public square dancers I met, one of the guangchangwu I met that night, was this 72-year-old feisty granny who had like double my spunk and about half my height. And Madam Hu shows up every single evening at 7:30 sharp to dance. She shared that a few years ago when she retired, her life suddenly felt boring. She felt isolated, spending most of her time cleaning up around the house or cooking. So even though she had never really danced before, she decided to give this local dancing group a try. And immediately on day one, she started making friends. Public square dancing in China is first and foremost a form of community building. Locals join these daily jam sessions for the sense of community, the sense of connection. And this makes so much sense to me, because the more that I dove into this idea of movement connecting people, the more I realized it removes so many barriers to connection. It heightens so many amazing aspects of community. This is also the reason why I now try and plan as many walking meetings as I can every single day throughout the year with my team whenever I'm working with clients. Anyone here ever planned or participated in a walking meeting before? It's literally a meeting on your feet. Awesome. I see a few hands. I highly encourage it. It's amazing. There are 3 main reasons why I try and plan as many of my meetings as walking meetings. All of these reasons I learned from the guangchangwu I met in Shanghai. Reason number 1, focus. Movement actually increases our focus. The movement, the physical motion, stimulates our prefrontal cortex. That's a part of our brain responsible for things like organization, concentration, planning. So it heightens our mental clarity. We can be more present, more connected to the people that we're talking with. It makes us better listeners. Number 1, focus. Number 2, creativity. Movement actually increases our creativity. And I'm not the only one nerding out on this one. Stanford researchers have actually now proven that creativity, your creative output, is increased by 60% when you're walking. 60%. Plus, I think this is so cool. I'm such a nerd. When you walk, you naturally change your scenery, right? The things around you change. Unless you're walking in a tight circle, things are going to change. When you change your scenery, it actually sparks new neural pathways in your brain. Those are what help us solve problems. So, if you want to be a more creative problem solver, instead of sitting stationary in your room or in your office, pick up your next meeting on its feet. Focus, creativity, and finally, community. Movement helps us build community. It helps us become better community builders. Many of the guangchangwu I met that night in Shanghai referred to these daily jam sessions as a form of community building, a way to meet other people without any barriers to connection. And something clicked right away to me. I realized that when someone of seniority is sitting across from someone else and a desk is between them, it's far more intimidating than when you're walking side by side. The same would go for interns or students. So focus, creativity, and community. 3 powerful attributes that are literally a short walk away. Now, every country I visited, including in Shanghai, China, I learned something new about community. But across them all, the universal theme was that life is meant to be a +1 experience. You know what I mean by a +1 experience? It's like a walk. It's the difference between reading a great novel versus being in a book club. The difference between walking on your own versus walking with someone else, walking in a group. Watching each of the 8 installments of the Harry Potter franchise on your own versus lining up at the theater for the midnight premiere dressed in costumes. It's why we spend hundreds of dollars on a ticket to see Bruce Springsteen live. Because it's better than listening to him on Spotify or on the radio in your car. We all crave these shared experiences with other people in real life. The eye contact, celebration, laughter, movement, it's all universal. Life is meant to be a +1 experience. Okay, I want to take you to one other country. I want to take you to the gorgeous Green Mountains in northern natal South Africa, where rural Zulu tribes have great influence on the local culture, including on common greetings. Now, traditionally, Zulu tribes greet one another by gazing into each other's eyes in silence for 10 seconds, until the elder of the two says, "Sawubona," meaning "I see you," to which the younger responds, "Sikhona," meaning "I am here." Now, first of all, 10 seconds of silence as part of a greeting ritual. 10 seconds of silence as part of a greeting. Here in North America, silence is what? Awkward. We don't like it. It's not okay. Imagine if I stood here on stage in silence for 10 seconds. You think, what is wrong with the keynote speaker? But imagine if I stopped you on the street or in the hallway outside and just gazed into your eyes for 10 seconds in silence. It sounds kind of creepy, right? But in South Africa, this greeting is actually deeply grounding. Sawubona, I see you, followed by Sikhona, I am here. Here's what I believe they're saying to one another. That until you see me, I don't even exist. That the action, the intention of seeing someone actually brings you into existence. And Sawubona implies really seeing someone. To say, my whole attention is with you. I want to understand you, your needs, your wants, your joy, your sadness, your fear, your love. And I thought, wow, I want to be seen like that. Don't we all want to be seen like that? I could not think of a better place than NAF Next for us to redefine leadership. What if, right here today, we redefine leadership? So it has nothing to do with what's written on your business card, the title you have, where your office is, if you have an office, what car you drive. What if we redefine leadership as 10 seconds of Sawubona, 10 seconds of I see you? Not too long ago, one member of my team, Arjun, who was actually a community outreach intern at the time, came to me and suggested that we take this annual event we had been touring, move it into one large venue, and stream it live so that anyone from anywhere could tune in. It was a great idea. It was a cost-effective way to scale our program, increase our impact. That idea ultimately led to the largest expansion our organization has ever seen. That may have never happened if Arjun didn't feel empowered to share his idea in the first place. As a CEO, as a leader within my organization, I consider myself a leading learner within the organization. Leadership doesn't begin with thinking. Leadership begins with listening. Because if Arjun didn't feel heard, if Arjun didn't feel like an empowered member of a community, he may have never shared his idea, he may have never had his idea in the first place. How many ideas, how many amazing, world-changing ideas are we missing out on because someone we work with, someone we mentor, doesn't consider themselves a leader, or we don't consider ourselves a leader? I believe there are leadership qualities lying dormant in every single one of us in this room today. Qualities that we haven't uncovered or tapped into yet. And we need to connect with others in meaningful ways because other people will help activate the parts of ourselves we don't even know exist yet. Everywhere I traveled, every experience I had, this same theme kept popping up. It didn't matter where I was or what I was doing, whether I was celebrating the New Year with locals in Vietnam, cheering on a soccer match in Mexico, meditating in an Arab settlement in the deserts of Israel, or living in a mud hut in rural Africa. Every chapter of my travels was rich with human connection, human interaction, and community. And that's what shaped and elevated my entire experience. It was never the event or the meal or the hike. It was always the people I was sharing it with. Education, business, it's all about people. It's all about relationships. It's one of the reasons I'm so thrilled to be here, somewhere that values the power of connection, the power of community. That is the foundation of any kind of empowerment. It's all about connecting with others. You heard it from JD earlier. Gratitude is a practice not only with yourself, it's something you practice with others. It's a tool for connection, a tool for building a greater sense of community. And I want to right now connect with every single one of you and express my gratitude for the work you do, for what you're doing for the next generation. It's incredibly important work, and I know that many of you, if not all of you, don't often feel the impact you're making. And I know that because I know it took me years to go back and see Mr. Conte and thank him and credit him for the reason that I'm standing here today. And I know that to be true, but it took me several years to realize it, and maybe a little longer to get my butt back into his office to thank him. And I know that there are young people across the country that feel the same way about you that perhaps have not articulated it yet. But the work you're doing is so important, it's making a huge difference. And the more that we connect with one another, the more we connect with our community, the more that we'll feel our own sense of impact. We need to connect with others to keep the empowerment going, to keep that sense of impact alive. And I want to give you an injection of empowerment and gratitude right now. So here's what I want to do as we get ready to wrap up. I want to give you all the round of applause that you deserve. So I want to split you down the middle. This is section 1, okay? This is section 2. When I count to 3, I want everyone in section 1 to get up and give the loudest, craziest 10 seconds of applause you've ever given in your entire life. Hold that thought. Section 2, you have a very different, equally important job. While section 1 is applauding, here's the deal. They're applauding for you. So I need you to lean back in your seats, maybe even cross your arms, nod, and just think to yourselves, I deserve this. All right? You think you could handle that? I'm sure you can. All right, here we go, section 1. Huge, biggest round of applause in history. We want to shake Detroit for 10 whole seconds. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Whew. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, feels so good. All right, have a seat, have a seat. Let's flip sides. Section 2, it's your turn. Even bigger, even louder than them. And section 1, lean back, think to yourselves, I deserve this. Here we go, section 2. 1, 2, 3. Amazing. I love it. You are each one connection, one moment of gratitude, one moment of community, one shared experience away from impact, from taking what you're doing right now and bringing it to the next level. And when we build that sense of community, it's unstoppable. When we build that sense of community, it future-proofs everything. Because while technology is advancing, while innovation is everywhere, the one thing that isn't going anywhere is our humanity, our connection to one another. And the more we celebrate that, the more we come together and actually acknowledge each other, the better we listen to each other, the more we're going to feel empowered, and the more we're going to be able to empower others. So, Ubona, I see you. Thank you very much.